Welcome everyone. This is a new video on SharePointist.com. I have had a very diverse experiences related to SharePoint governance. First as an administrator responsible for a global multi-farm deployment, and then as a consultant advising a broad range of customers from governments to large corporate enterprises. I have worked on SharePoint specific roles at Microsoft, HCL, Tata, Emerson, and many more. I have also had the opportunity to deliver inside an IT organization and also for the service providers. I have been involved with several escalations where customers have needed help getting their environment back under control, and I have also collaborated with a variety of consulting service delivery firms to assist delivering SharePoint solutions to customers. All these valuable perspectives has given me the opportunity to share my knowledge and experience with all who are in any way related with this technology. It became so popular that calling anything governance seems to make it easier to sell services, positioning the concept as almost a catch-all phrase on which to blame problems or challenges. This diluting of the term governance created the idea that somehow with some governance planning services, all of one's problem would simply disappear. Let's expand SharePoint governance from a simple exercise that delivers a document, a cookie-cutter governance plan that sits on a shelf and falls short of all the magic in once promised. Instead, we will look at the behavior we need to adopt, the decision processes, and the people we need involved. Yes, part of governance is documenting, and we will look at a wealth of information in this video today that you can use to support your documentation initiatives if required in your nature of work. Yet the majority of governance addresses actual practices used day to day on the ground, and this is the primary focus of today's video revolving around the SharePoint governance model. Well, governance mainly revolves around people, processes, policies, and technologies that further delivers a service. Governance is also a set of actions, behaviors, and commitment that relate to SharePoint service, and it contributes to a set of established intentional operational processes and procedures, and mainly in the decision-making protocols as well. I used these big abstract categories of actions, behaviors, and commitments to stress that it is something to adopt and do more than just being something to document a file. An action is the first initiative or response to an opportunity. A behavior is a set of practices that becomes a habit. A commitment is a dedication that evolves into a purpose. And your attitude around these three is a way of thinking that matures into values and eventually becomes second nature. Governance is not simply a document you can spend a couple of weeks filling in the blanks, like pressing an easy button on some template you have downloaded and expect to be a magical bullet. In my experience, I have found these type of templates in common use provide a sort of catharsis, a false sense of accomplishment, because these are a few things that generate a lot of activity but often focus excessively on the task of completing the document itself. And they are certainly easier to sell because they fit into a tighter little package, but from the countless customers I have observed, this approach and simplistic view of governance is largely ineffective. Well, you cannot architect a form without governance input, and you also can't create a governance enabled services without a solid architecture. So, enforcement requires a sustained cycle of policy, investigation, agreement, rules, and enforcement review, which completes when SharePoint ceases to exist in the organization. In this diagram, you can see the layer approach for sustaining and achieving the governance. Sustaining governance is also about achieving and sustaining business and IT agility. You need to ensure that the right individuals involved in the governance committee are empowered with decision rights and management activities. This can be achieved through applying SharePoint service delivery, which concerns itself with the capability of SharePoint services and, more importantly, the resources. SharePoint 2013 adds exciting new capabilities and it enhances some existing features that aid in achieving different governance objectives, making this a very exciting release of governance needs. I would pick eDiscovery as one new capability in SharePoint 2013 that provides rich governance features because it provides the infrastructure for managing and governing content from individual items to entire site collections. SharePoint 2013 eDiscovery adds sophistication from a record management and information management perspective. And these enhanced capabilities add maturity to SharePoint itself as an enterprise content management system and also as a collaboration platform for the organization. Well, many would think like why governance with information architecture could be that important or that big a deal, but information architecture in SharePoint Server is the organization of information in an enterprise. Its documents, lists, websites, and web pages together formulates the entire information architecture for any organization's content and collaboration management system. And in order to maximize the information's usability and manageability, there are a few factors which are very important to contribute to the successful implementation of information architecture. Like how easy it is to find information, how information is stored and retrieved, how users navigate to information, how redundant or overlapping information is, what metadata is available for each type of information, what templates are used for creating information, how well the information architecture is governed, or how my sites fits into the information architecture. That's again a very important criteria. The goal and implementation of information architecture will vary depending on the type of solution you are creating. For example, if you are designing the information architecture for an enterprise intranet portal site, you might focus on areas like metadata, like how metadata will be used to characterize the site's content, the organization of content in sites and document libraries, or the availability of that content in portal sites, and the templates to use for creating those specific type of contents which are mainly being used for by the entire organization. When you design the information architecture for an internet presence website, you might focus on areas like how the site is organized into a hierarchy of subsites and web pages, and how the hierarchy is exposed in the site's navigation features, or how easy it is to search for content on the site, because the internet enabled or the SharePoint enabled internet sites can create tons of data. So information architecture decisions may also affect the flow of information. For example, in an intranet portal site, information may initially be drafted in sites that are not available to most members of an organization, but to make that information discoverable, useful, and actionable across the organization, the information architecture design could include methods and guidelines for exposing information in locations that are available to all the users. Depending on the size of an organization, you should consider including an information architect who is responsible for designing and implementing solutions based on SharePoint Server on your team. Information architects have expertise in structuring information in large web environments such as internet portal sites, which are even more difficult to manage at times. Governing information architecture in an enterprise should be quite a big thing, because IT in any organization is having a full control over the manageability of the information architecture on SharePoint environment. Information architecture meets the regulatory requirement and privacy needs and security goals is also one of the key deliverables from IT. Information architecture meets an organizational business goal. That's again something which is really important and needs to be considered by IT and business together, though. And we must remember that a poorly designed and governed information architecture can take a lot from the organization's effectiveness. Whereas, on the other hand, a well designed and governed information architecture can add a lot of value proposition in the organization's effectiveness. Governing content could be a very dicey and a biggie in the overall information architecture. When you create a plan that governs content in an environment, we must consider a few important points, like use workflows and approvals for document centers and site pages wherever official document is stored. We must use version history and version control to maintain a history and master document. We should use content types with auditing and expiration of document libraries to manage document lifecycle. Use site use confirmation and deletion to manage site collection lifecycles. Identify important corporate assets and sites that contain personally identifiable information. Be sure that they are properly secured and audited. Integrate the information architecture with the environment search strategy. Take advantage of enterprise search features like best bets, people search, content sources, connectors for external content, authoritative pages, keywords, scopes, thesaurus, taxonomy, and rating. Over here in this diagram on the side, what you can see that there are dedicated site collections for each BU, like information technology, finance, human resources, sales, etc. And they have their own dedicated subsites. In finance, they will have a dedicated subsites, say for IT, for sales, general, petty expenses, whatever. In the IT, there will be support group, there will be a delivery team, there will be an architecture group, etc. So in sales, there will be government, there will be private, there will be corporate, etc. So these are a few things which will still be there in no matter whatever organization we are talking about. So it needs to be formulated and managed centrally through SharePoint, but with the right set of information architecture. Without having one in place, governance will make definitely no sense to the organization. Well, one of the key message I want you to take away in this video is that each of the governance concepts that follow can have an impact. Although implementing more of them certainly has a greater effect, I also have the mantra that every little bit helps. Look for those low-hanging fruit types of opportunities that you can adopt first. Look for those areas you can take an initiative and make a start. This can make that first step easier and can help you build momentum as you get started. There are often no quick fixes, and it would be difficult and overwhelming to attempt to adopt everything at once. Nevertheless, I still encourage you to make a start that will slowly accumulate into something significant and rewarding, creating a snowball effect to build your governance momentum. I like to think less about the scope governance and more about governance being a long continuum. I typically do not look at a customer's SharePoint situation and package up all the governance pieces they need. For me, I usually want to decide what we need to address first and build momentum from there. Even if you do not, or even if you do want to go after everything, there still has to be an order. Something has to come first, and I usually start with the most pressing or whatever will produce the biggest bang and the quickest impact. So rather than thinking about how much governance you need, think about where you want to start first. Alrighty then, I hope the session was good and gave good enough insights about how to manage an effective governance model in the organization and what is the actual importance of a right and proper information architecture. So stay tuned for more videos. Thanks. www.sharepointist.com